And welcome to Waiter ECC. Today I'd like to give you a brief overview of some of the features of the Waiter ECC system. You'll notice on the left side there are two small windows, front and rear. These are for displaying the current status and temperatures of the front and rear systems. To change the status, you simply just click on either the front or the rear. And you'll notice the word front and rear is blinking. Right now we're controlling the rear system. And if I want to do the front, I'm controlling the front system. To change mode, simply click on the button, off, heat, AC low, AC high, AC auto, fan low, fan high, and there's a new feature we'll discuss here in just a moment. To change set points on any of these items, you simply select the item, like here we're select the heat mode. And to raise or lower the set point, just simply use the up and down button. The system will remember its set points and the mode it's in. So if I go into like for instance, air conditioning low, I can change the set point there. And if I go back to heat, you'll notice that it does remember the set point. And of course, go to off. The exact same applies for the rear system, but keep in mind if you only have one furnace and you're configured for one furnace, you won't be seeing the heat or the heat AC mode buttons. Those aren't optional because obviously you don't have a furnace in the rear. One of the neat features of the Waiter ECC system is the ability to control the heat and air conditioning simultaneously. It'd be almost exactly like having the heat function and the air conditioning auto function selected, and that's exactly what it does. If it gets too cold, the heat function will kick in. If it gets too warm, the air conditioning function kicks in. And of course, it uses the set points that are established. For instance, here we just selected the heat AC mode, and you'll note that it's 71 is the heat set point, and 78 is the air conditioning set point. The only condition for using this mode is the two set points must be at least 5 degrees apart. And you can set those set points individually by either going with the heat or the air conditioning. And you'll notice that those are the set points we use. For instance, there's the 78 degrees for the air conditioning, and there's the 71 degrees for the heat. And note these set points will be displayed real time on the heat air conditioning button. So if I change the heat set point up or down, you'll notice it actually changes here to show me what the change, but it also changes real time on that button to show me what the changes are. If I want to change, if I'm in the heat air conditioning mode, if I use the up and down buttons, you'll notice that it raises both the heating and the air conditioning, or lowers the heating and air conditioning set points. If I'm in that mode, it does simultaneously. Again, the heating and air conditioning set points must be at least 5 degrees apart. If they're closer than 5 degrees, it will not allow you to select that mode. In fact, it will actually trigger itself into off mode if you attempt to select it. So that's the only thing you're going to have to be careful of if you want to use the heat air conditioning mode. And again, that same mode is available to the rear system, but again, only if you have a furnace in the rear. So you must have two furnaces for this to be available for the rear system. So again, there's your real-time display of the temperatures. There's your set points, what mode you're in, and you can select any of these simply by selecting or clicking on either the front or the rear to select the proper mode. Many of us will be traveling or crossing through different time zones or possibly even daylight savings times. To change the time, if you'll click on the time button on the bottom, you'll notice there's a month, day, year, hour, minute, AM, PM. Simply click here. This will increment to change the hour, minute, AM, PM, or whatever. And once you have the correct settings, just simply click the set time button. You'll notice if any changes are made, the set time button will highlight, and just as a reminder that you do need to click it in order to make your changes take effect. If you return or exit the page without doing the save, it just won't remember it. Another neat advantage of the waiter system is it has a built-in alarm clock, and hour, minute, AM, PM. The duration is how long you want the alarm to sound for. There's nothing more disturbing than having someone's alarm clock going off for hours on end if no one's there to push the button to silence it. Well, what will happen is the duration is the number of seconds that the alarm will sound. So if you're a really sound sleeper, you might need 150 seconds, and if you're a light sleeper, 30 seconds would certainly do. Repeat is how often do you want this to happen? If you select once, it'll happen tomorrow morning. If you select daily, it'll happen every day at the same time. And again, you must hit save to make that function in memory. One item that you'll note is, let's go back to the main page, is there's your time, your alarm clock setting. So if your alarm clock is set, you'll see the time and the functionality displayed there. And if it's not set, that functionality doesn't show up. Okay, so back to this screen. Again, your time, temperature, number of amps you're drawing on your 30 amp service, and the DC voltage level, what the DC volts are. Schedule is also another feature you'll find in the Waiter ECC. You can set a time, a set point, and a mode. So for instance, if I want at 7:30, I want the furnace to kick on and I want it at 70 degrees, I select the set point, I lower it down to 70, and the mode, I set it heat, I hit save, and now tomorrow morning at 7:30 a.m., the furnace is going to go into heat mode with a set point of 70. One item to note is notice this little gray box over here. Whenever you see that little gray box in the lower left corner, that's telling you that there's a schedule for that system. In other words, if you see a gray box here, there's a schedule for the rear system. If you see a gray box here, there's a schedule for the front system. So pay mind those schedules. And of course, if you don't touch any of the buttons within a 30-second time period, it automatically clicks back to the main screen. Let's go back to schedule for just a moment. You can change the time. The times are in 15-minute increments. You can go up or down. Set points you can change. The mode, there's actually 4 modes. There's a heat mode, an air conditioning mode, and of course our new heat air conditioning mode where you can set the 2 set points individually. An off mode, off is actually a mode you're telling the system to turn off, and then nothing. Nothing is, there's nothing going to happen for that time. Now if I hit save, watch what's going to happen here with this green box, or gray box. See, it goes away because there's no longer a schedule associated with the front system. Okay, you can copy the mode. For instance, if I have a schedule for the front, I can actually copy that to the rear system, tell it to save, and notice the gray came on. And if I go to the rear and look at the rear schedule, it's identical to the front because I just copied. You can actually set the front and the rear systems up totally separately. However, you can turn one to run for the heater, and if you really like your electric bill, you can set the other one to run for the air conditioner and run them both at the same time if you wanted to do that. Okay, so that shows you what the schedule features are. The configuration is very briefly. This will show you what the current versions are for both the touchscreen display and the I/O. It'll also show you can select what units you wish to display. If you wish to display in Fahrenheit or Celsius, how many furnaces you have. Do you have 1 or 2? Temperature source you won't be getting into. Normally you're going to see it at 144. Same with the corrections. You'll see these. The voltage correction is just some minor corrections in case there needs to be some minor differences in wiring, etc. Like right now, I know we're putting about 13.5 volts, so this is very, very close. Air conditioning shedding. If you're not really sure about these, leave them where they're at. Says your front unit is a 15,000 BTU, the rear unit is 13,000. We'll explain that in just a moment. Brightness level. The system has actually three sets of brightnesses it goes to. Anytime you click anywhere on the screen, it automatically goes to the brightest level it is. If you don't touch anything for about 30 seconds, it's going to go either to what we call the day bright or the night bright, depending on either the time of day or how it is set up to start. There's two ways of determining when you want to use day bright or night bright. And you can either do it automatically. If you select auto in the day start or night start, it'll do it by either sunrise or sunset. If you do it by a time, which most people do, like for instance this one, anything after 6:30 in the morning up to 9:30 at night, we do the day bright. After 9:30 at night until 6:30 in the morning, we do the night bright. Now these numbers are not linear. In other words, 6 is not, or 12 is not twice as bright as 6. What we find is every display is a little bit different. So what we usually like to do is set the night bright at the dimmest it'll go that you can still see it in a dark room. This way it's not obnoxiously bright, it's not keeping everybody awake at night, but yet it's just barely bright enough where you can actually see it in a very dark room. And then of course the day bright, we usually set them at about 100, maybe a little bit lower. This is a little bit dimmer than full brightness, and the goal is you can still see it, but it's not bright enough where we're constantly burning up our display. So that's a brief feature. Obviously hit save, and when you make any of these changes, you'll see the green button, save button change to green. A lot of features are saved on the control module itself, and some of the features are saved here locally at the touch screen. If it's a local touch screen item that gets saved, you'll see the save button change to green, telling you, reminding you need to save this feature. Okay, that's pretty much sums it up. Let's talk real briefly about shedding. Waiter ECC does two modes of shedding, a pre-shed and a normal shed. We'll talk about shedding in our next video because it looks like we're just about out of time for this one. Thank you.